Hello and welcome, travelers, to the day one update to the Time Rod Void Knight, and I have to say it went pretty dang well. We got all the way through and set up our empowered monoliths. I'm not a good last epoch racer, but we finished about 10 o'clock last night, which I think was either 8 to 10 hours into the launch of the event, something like that. But let's go ahead and get ahead into a map to show you what the character looks like currently. There's been a few changes to the character and I want to highlight the differences and whatnot. But let's go ahead and do our first level 100 monolith now that we have it available and talk about the character and a bit of what has changed in the zoom my character out because I had it zoomed in a little bit more than I wanted. But anyways, let's talk about what we did and what's going on. So currently the biggest change that happened is number one, I started using Anomaly, which I had just forgotten about was a skill, and Anomaly is actually insane for the build. And number two is I decided to end up going with a hammer throw application of Time Rot instead of Smite. I ultimately am going to be testing out multiple different skills to see what can give me the most effective Time Rot, basically application, so to speak, because it's all about getting a skill that can generate a high multiplier, innate multiplier, because that affects the Time Rot in terms of what skills applying it. And number two, it also depends on the other supporting factors. For example, if the skill can support, maybe instead of like Ignite, for example, on Smite, it says you can apply your chance to ignite applies Time Rot instead, which is a multiplier for Time Rot, for example. So stuff like that. Ultimately, skills I've been looking at that might be the best to do could be a Warpath seems like a decent option. Smite is a decent option, and then what we've been doing with what we've been doing with Hammer Throw seems like a decent option. I'm going to go over Hammer Throw specifically as what we're using currently to try to explain my logic behind it. As well as we'll look at the tree, a leveling tree of the character, and a rough update to the endgame plan and some stuff in terms of, like, initially I planned like 5 skills out and I've swapped 2 of those out. I want to talk about the changes and why we made them in terms of what we thought was how things would work going into this, and then what we learned when we were actually testing out certain skills. So we want to highlight that just to explain the changes I made and why I made them. I got another champion enemy over here. Hello, sir. And this thing, I guess it would have been nice for me to like prep a boss or something, but I didn't really think about it. I just ended last night's stream getting to empowered monos, and so we're just starting off this video recording exactly where we left off, and it is what it is. Maybe tomorrow on day 2 update I'll prep an actual like boss fight or something to showcase, so you get more than just a little bit of normal Echo content to observe, so to speak. So anyways, let's get into the characters basically changes we made and why we made them. So looking at the skills, first of all, 2 changes occurred. I'm not using Smite. I am not using Symbols of Hope yet, and I'm not using Volatile Reversal. So I guess that's 3 changes. Volatile Reversal, we tested it, and whoever told me that these buffs would be active if you have this thing whenever you port around was just incorrect. These buffs do not apply when you grab this node. Their condition is strict on it has to be when you jump backwards. So they were just wrong, so that doesn't work. And number 2, Volatile Reversal felt pretty kind of sluggish or slow for a movement skill. Didn't really feel like I was going much faster with it. Whereas Healing Hands felt like a much more efficient movement skill to actually cover distance. So that's why we changed those movement skills. I might be swapping out Healing Hands for Symbols once we get some pretty good movement speed boots. I'll have to feel that out and see what actually makes sense to me, but that's something I'm thinking about doing. On top of that, Hammer Throw. Why are we doing Hammer Throw? The reason for Hammer Throw is it actually has a bunch of more damage multipliers throughout its tree. For example, 50% more here, 50% more here, and this thing, which is 40% more based on our 4 additional hammers, this node, which is 75% more, and this node, which is giving 12%, and eventually if I get extra levels, it can get all the way up to 18% more. When you strap all those multipliers together, it actually does about 5.5x base multiplier, and that applies to the Time Rot it's procking on enemies, which is pretty good at an initial baseline. For comparison, Smite, if we look over at Smite, I'll pull it up here. Smite has 250% more, and that's about it. So it starts out at basically double the multiplier initially. The thing where Smite might start to get more competitive is Smite has the ability to grab this node, which makes Ignite chance apply to Time Rot chance, and the Sentinel's tree for Time Rot chance is itself another damage multiplier source you can go to. And there's not necessarily a ton of multiplier or a ton of Time Rot chance throughout the game that you can get. Like, for example, this would allow us to grab a weapon that has like 100 to 200% ignite chance as like a suffix for like a high tier suffix. That's an option you get if you have this. So that's why Smite is something to consider. Another example of a good multiplier skill we might end up considering in late game is actually Warpath. If we can get the mana solved, Warrior's Fury, this stacking multiplier, could be very, very good. The thing is, it's contingent on channeling for a large duration of time, which means we have to have some really good mana regen. I think this is going to require some decent amount of mana investment on our gearing. And on top of that, we'll have to combine it with the Void Essence recover 30% life mechanic, which could be doable. We are going to be hitting a lot, and this is something to look into. But I just wanted to reference it as something we are considering potentially in the future, because this is a huge multiplier and can ramp harder than what we have right now with Hammer Throw and with Smite. And on top of that, late game, it can also have Bleed and Ignite chance apply to Time Rot instead. So that is a consideration we will be looking at later on as a possibility, but for right now, the mana is just too hard. And then a fourth possibility of a skill applicator we could end up trying is potentially something like a Racing Strike, which has just pretty big damage multipliers to begin with. It can get a massive amount of Time Rot chance, more than most skills can. You can get 400% Time Rot chance on just these 4 points alone. So there's things like this as well to consider. So those are some options. I'm starting with Hammer Throw because it was just pretty baseline. It's very easy to solve mana for Hammer Throw. All I had to do was get one ring with -3 cost on top of our skill tree, grabbing minus cost, and then combine that with a little 1 mana regen roll, and that's all we needed for our character to be able to sustain our constantly proccing Devouring Orbs on top of our Anomaly Bubble and our occasional Echoes cast to apply increased damage taken. Speaking of going over the trees, what is Abyssal Echoes giving us? It's giving us enemies take 24% increased damage. We deal 20% more damage to blinded enemies, and we blind with the skill, as well as we get Time Rot chance as well with it, which is another damage multiplier. So that's what Echoes is giving us, in case you're wondering. And then as for Anomaly is giving us global CDR. It's giving us attack and cast speed, which is another multiplier for Time Rot, by the way. It is giving us enemies take increased void damage, and I believe, I don't know 100% this works. I'm gonna have to test it to make sure. I believe this might make the Time Rot proc faster, which should be a multiplier as well if it works that way, but I need to do some further testing with the Anomaly skill to verify this is actually working the way I think it's supposed to be working. But yeah, those are the skill setups of what we're doing. As for our passive tree, I decided to go and fill out the Void Knight tree first. I did 5 points initially on the Paladin tree, where I basically got our block effectiveness up. And we also got a little bit of attunement and LA res is what I ended up going with. And then 10 points will get us to the 15 point for Symbols of Hope, which I'm thinking about swapping for Healing Hands if our character, we can get the movement speed to feel where it doesn't seem like we need a movement skill and we rather just speed walk around, and that's fine. I'm considering that. We'll see how that goes. But before I started investing in this tree, I filled out this Void Knight tree all the way up to this point. Late game, I'm going to consider speccing fully into Essence End for Void Essence proc rate, as well as consuming the Void Essence to give us back 30% of our mana, and that potentially will allow us to go for Warpath for the Giga damage multiplier. We might look into that today. I'm not sure. We might test it out. And outside of that, we're proccing all of our Echo chance to get those Devouring Orbs popping more often, as well as doubling up Hammer Throws occasionally. And the most important nodes, and the nodes which allows us to actually be a Time Rot build, is Rot Ripples, which gives you Time Rot Prolift. So if you hit a monster, it'll then Prolift the Time Rot around on kill. And then on top of that, Rot Grip, which really makes Time Rot actually have damage scaling, because it gives you 3 separate multipliers. It gives you more percent damage for every percent slow chance you have. It gives you more percent damage based on how much Time Rot chance you have, and more percent damage based on the lowest of your attack and cast speed. And this also includes throw speed. So for example, like generic attack speed, I think just works. But if you have 20% increased melee attack speed, then you need another 20% throwing speed to go along with it, I think. And it's going to be the lowest between your cast and attack speed increases on the tree. So that's what's going on right now with the Void Knight in our current setup. Real quick, a lot of people have asked me about leveling. I think it's pretty easy to look up a bleed leveling guide, but just in case you don't want to go looking for it, I'll tell you exactly what I did to just speed run through the campaign. I went to Act 7 and got 15 out of 15 passives and my idle slots. That was my approach. And what I did for leveling, this is going to be a planner in the description of this video, is I did 20 points in Sentinel where I did strength with all the res initially. Then I went damage here. Then I went CDR to make our movement a little bit faster. And then I went 1.1 point to get the block. That was my first 20 points on Sentinel. And then after that, I went straight for 5 points to get the Giga Bleed chance. And then 5 points to get the pen, fizz damage, fire damage, which allows us to do healing hands as a movement. And so from there, we had 3 skills, and this is pretty much all we really needed to just bum rush through the campaign. 3 skills: hammer throw, you initially go up straight to iron spiral, then 2 points into catapult for the extra projectiles, then you go straight down here for the Giga Ignite chance. That's your hammer throw tree. As for your holy aura, went straight to percent damage to give attack damage, to then give ourselves throwing speed, attack speed, and then later on we started spiking into endurance and percent Ellie res. And then for our healing hands, we did 2 points here, make it a movement skill, and then we went around solving our mana and making ourselves immune to damage while we were moving. These 3 skills and this basic tree should get you all the way through Act 7 pretty smoothly. As for the extra passives you get while leveling, I would start filling out your Void Knight tree based on what the Void Knight tree has here. I would start copying this stuff and prepare yourself to click Devouring Orb and start leveling it. So that way, when you get to around level 50-ish, this is when I swapped, the skill will already be leveled a decent amount and you can just swap straight over to it. The one thing else you're going to do is you're going to be respecing all your nodes that are in your other trees to go straight into Void Knight. The one other thing you're going to do, make sure you have enough points for Anomaly and spec into that right away. Ultimately, I'd say do this at around level 50 when you have about 65 points, and that should get you up and running. Basically, you need to have Rot Ripples, Rot Grip. You want all those nodes, and I recommend 5 points in Woe for that slow chance, because remember, it is a multiplier with Rot Grip. And then outside of that, 1 point into Void Essence initially, and then start just getting your way to this Echo Chance, and you should be having a good time. So that's the approach I did. I'll have the planner for the bleed leveling, and we've this planner updated now with the new skill setups we have. And of course, we'll be streaming this live today. So if you have any questions, come by, feel free to ask. That's the plan. We'll see how it goes. Right now, we just got to Empowered Monoliths, and then today on stream, we'll see if we can do push corruption and maybe see about taking on the Aberrath. I don't know how hard this boss is. I didn't play the last season, so I'm going to be going in blind, and we'll see how that goes. As always, thanks for watching, Exiles. Take care and peace out. I said Exiles. I'm too used to saying that. I guess it's Travelers because I'm making a last epic video. So anyways, take care. Have a good one.